Amen. Life hacks. My name is Efren Pena. I'm the campus pastor here at South Hills, and it's truly an honor again to have you with us this morning. We are in week 6 of our summer series, Life Hacks. And how many of you have just been enjoying this series? It's been incredible. Nobody raised their hand. Okay, well, we'll just keep moving, right? We'll keep moving right along here, right? So those are the things, I need to stop asking questions. So over the last several weeks, we've been diving into the book of James and pulling out some incredible wisdom, right? Basically, we've been pulling out life hacks, right? Real practical insight for navigating pressure, for navigating people and the parts of our life that feel the most overwhelming. And so in week 6, we're going to be talking why we cannot stop doing it. Why we cannot stop doing it. And so I'm going to have a TMI moment with you all this morning, right? For those of you who are 45 and over and don't know what TMI is, too much information. I'm going to share too much information this morning, and please forgive me in advance. Okay? How many of you have ever had I'll never do that again moment in life? I think everyone had. If you have not raised your hand, you're lying. You're in church. Come on. All right? I think many of us have, and I've had my share as well. But one that keeps reoccurring for me, unfortunately, is that I'm never gonna eat that ever again. And that comes from the bathroom moment. I know, it's a little TMI, I said that, right? But I find it interesting how even though we say that, I'm never going to do that again, we wind up doing it anyway. As I said, I've had my share of mistakes in life, and I've also had my share of mistakes trusting gas station hot food. I know. You can keep your opinions to yourself. It has always been when I am starving and I am in a rush. There's no time to stop anywhere to get something else. I'm getting gas. I might as well get a snack. I might as well get something to eat, right? And as you enter the shop for a snack, the aroma of that crusty pizza or that dried hot dog or those weird-looking things they call chicken wings, it hits you, right? And it looks good enough under those lights with a sign that reads, "It's your day, 2 for the price of 1." All right? Now, I know what you're thinking. That sentence alone should have been the warning, the flag. But like I said, I was hungry. It looked halfway decent, and I thought, man, it's probably fine. All right? I paid. I scarfed it down. I don't even know what it tasted like. And I was on my way. But about an hour later into the ride, it began. My stomach was staging a full-blown protest. Sound effects and all. TMI. And the worst part, I was nowhere near home. What a miserable lesson. Now, do you think I learned my lesson? But a few months later, I found myself in the same predicament. I was hungry and in a rush, needed some gas. Yep. Gotcha. I was lured in like a bass on a jig. Same situation, same result. Anybody been there before? Not at the gas station, but in life. It's kind of ridiculous when you say it out loud. How do you go back to something that already made you sick? Like I remember back in the days, I think Maddie asked a question a few days ago about Dorito chips. He says, "Dad, I really don't ever see you eat Dorito chips." That's because I had an incident way back. I learned from that lesson. right? How do you talk to yourself? How do you talk yourself into repeating what you already hurt you? Because today I've been eating Dorito chips. But here's the thing. We do this kind of thing all of the time. Maybe not with gas station food, but we do it in life. We keep going back to the things we know that don't work. We tell ourselves, this time is going to be different. It's going to be different. We justify it. We ignore the warning signs. And then the same frustration, same shame and regret show up over and over again. And it's not always funny, right? Sometimes it can be heartbreaking. Because we don't go back to the gas station hot dogs or the pizza or those, whatever those things look like. We go back to fear. We go back to anger. We go back to numbing out, to trying to prove ourselves, to hiding parts of who we really are. We say we've changed, we've grown, we've moved on, but we find ourselves right back where we said we'd never be again. You've had that moment where you've told yourself, man, I'm done with that. I'm done with that. But then somehow you weren't. You said, never again will I raise my voice like that. Never again will I hook up with someone just to feel wanted. Never again will I hide the truth. Never again will I stroll that late. Never again will I drink that much. Never again would I give in that easily. But somehow, some way, here you are again. Stuck in the same cycle, wondering, how did I end up back here? Maybe it's something we reach for when we're tired. Maybe it's something that we reach for when we are feeling overwhelmed or feeling low. It might be a relationship. It might be a behavior or a substance, a lie that we tell ourselves. Or maybe it's not something that we do. Maybe it's something that we believe. Like, I'm not enough. I'm not enough. This is just who I am. It's not hurting anyone. I'll deal with it later. But deep down, we know that it's not helping us. We know that it's costing us something. It's costing us peace, trust, self-worth, clarity, connection. And yet we keep doing it. Maybe it's blowing up at your kids again. Maybe it's staying in a job that is draining you because you're scared of starting over. Maybe it's medicating with food, alcohol, attention, shopping, or social scrolling. You tell yourself that it's just a little thing, but in actuality, it's actually stealing. It's stealing your joy. It's messing with your mind, and you don't know how to stop. Friends, we all carry a list of, I can't believe I did that again. We all do. Can't believe I did that again, right? These are moments that we're walking around with, and the worst part, you thought you were past this. You thought you were past this. You had that conversation. You set the boundary. You made the promise, and you even prayed. But when the pressure hit, when loneliness crept in, when temptation kind of flared up, you defaulted. You defaulted to what you knew, even if it's not what you wanted. And here's the thing, it's not just you. The Apostle Paul, who wrote much of the New Testament, gets brutally honest about this exact same struggle. In Romans 7:15, he says, I don't really understand myself, for I want to do what is right, but I don't do it. Instead, I do what I hate. Then he goes on to say in verse 18, and I know that nothing good lives in me, that is, in my sinful nature. I want to do what is right, but I can't. I want to do what is good, but I don't. I don't want to do what is wrong, but I do it anyway. But if I do what I don't want to do, I am not really the one doing wrong. It is sin living in me that does it. Friends, how relatable is that? It's like Paul is in our head. You're caught in the tension between who you want to be and who you keep reverting back to. And you're not alone in this cycle, friends, right? And you're not crazy. But you also don't have to stay stuck there. There is hope. There is direction. Because here's the hard truth, friends. Sin doesn't always sneak in. Sometimes we open the door. Sometimes we say, oh, sin, come on in. You're welcome. Bienvenidos. It's funny, but it's reality. Tons of people, oh man, that I didn't know that was gonna come in, and I kind of like snuck in. I didn't want that in. I get that. Those situations happen. But a lot of times we're also the ones that are opening sin and welcoming them in. We do it when we're stressed, when we're lonely, when we're tired, when we feel invisible. And every time that we slip back into that familiar choice, we feel it. We feel the guilt, the regret, and the weight of it. And slowly, the lie kind of creeps in. This is just who I am now. It is what it is. But what if it's not? What if it's not who you are? What if it's just a wound that you've been carrying around that has not healed? A want that hasn't been surrendered. You're not stuck because you're weak. You're stuck because something deeper needs attention. That make sense? Let's talk about that this morning. Let's talk about that because God doesn't just want to forgive your sin. He wants to free you from it. Oh, yes, he does. He wants to free you from it. So, why do we keep doing what we said we'd never do again? Why do we fall into the same traps, have the same fights, and carry the same guilt? James 4:1 says, what is causing the quarrels and fights among you? Don't they come from the evil desires at war? Sorry, my New York accent comes in. The evil desires, doesn't it come from the evil desires at war within you? And what he's saying is that the conflict out there between you and your spouse, between you and your kids, between you and your boss, between you and that friend group, that conflict often comes from the conflict in here. Does that make sense? The conflict inside of us. You see, the war around you is often fueled by the war within you. Think about that. The war around you is often fueled by the war within you. And then he goes a little bit further, a little bit deeper. And in verse 2, he tells us that you want what you don't have, so you fight. You want what you don't have, and so you fight. In other words, you chase what you crave. You chase what you crave. You crave validation. You crave comfort, control, pleasure, power, attention. And when you don't get it, what do? You overreact. You spiral. You settle. You self-sabotage. Now, I know it sounds crazy, but in the verse, the words that he uses is you kill to get it. You kill to get it. Think about it. Ever kill a relationship because you had to be right? You had to be right. And so you killed the relationship. Ever kill your peace to chase one more sale? Ever kill your integrity for a moment of control, approval, or comfort? In verse 3, he says, and even when you ask, you don't get it because your motives are all wrong. You want only what will bring you or give you pleasure. And so you're going after something because you feel like it's going to fill that void. And you're going to go after it with a desire that says, man, I'm going to just destroy whatever is in my path to get it because I want it so bad. James says that we don't get what we really need because we either don't ask God or we ask him for the wrong reasons. Now go through your Rolodex of life and be like, man, where are those things that I've wanted? Why didn't I get it? Did I ask God for it? Or did I have some other intentions or motives behind it, and that's why I didn't get it? Think about it. Friends, we want relief more than we want restoration. We want escape more than we want growth. We want God to bless our choices, not to change our choices. And then James says something really bold. It says in verse 4, don't you realize that friendship with the world makes you an enemy of God? I say it again, if you want to be a friend of the world, you make yourself an enemy of God. He's not talking about being kind to people. No, he's talking about aligning our values with a system that promises happiness through status. A happiness through stuff. A happiness through self-importance. And when we fall into that pattern of chasing these things, it's no wonder that we feel exhausted and tired and things are going cray-cray. But James doesn't leave us hopeless, friends. He reminds us of something so powerful. In verse 6, he says, and he gives grace generously, as the scriptures say, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. That's a game changer. That's literally a game changer. God doesn't expect you to be perfect, friends. He invites you to be honest. To be honest. Then James lays out the path for us. And verse 7 to 10 says to humble ourselves. To humble ourselves, and he will lift us up. In other words, your healing doesn't begin with strength. It begins with surrender. When we surrender, God says, okay, you let go of it. Now I can do what I can do. Friends, it's not about you trying harder. It's about turning back. It's about coming clean. It's about coming close to him. You see, you cannot defeat what you won't admit. You cannot defeat what you won't admit. And to bring this into focus, let's look at a story that from Jesus' life that shows this in action. Because it's one thing to hear these words from James, but it's another to see how Jesus meets us right where we are. So let's go to a well in the middle of the day and meet a woman who knew this cycle all too well. In John chapter 1, 4-3, and I'm going to paraphrase so we can move along here, but Jesus is leaving Judea, right? And he's traveling north from Judea to Galilee. And basically, he is traveling from southern Israel to northern Israel, right? Most Jewish people would avoid the direct route that takes you through Samaria. Samaria was a region where people saw as a place that was impure and off limits. Jews and Samaritans had deep-rooted racial and religious tensions going back centuries. And so if you were a Jew, you would not stop in Samaria whatsoever. You had no business there. And the Samaritans didn't like you anyway. They didn't want you there. But Jesus, instead of taking a detour or going around, no, Jesus says, I'm going right through Samaria. Going right through Samaria. And so he walks through it. And this is good news. This is good news for us because it's a physical representation of this beautiful reality that I'm about to share with you. And that's that Jesus doesn't avoid the broken parts of our story. He walks right into them. Doesn't bypass them. He doesn't neglect them. He doesn't avoid them. The stuff that you're going through, the ugly stuff in your life, no, he walks right through it. And in verse 4-6, Jesus sits by the well at noontime. And I said this before, that Jesus is in the details. God is in the details, rather. God is in the details, and so words matter to him. And he makes sure that it's highlighted, right, that it's noontime. Right? It's noontime. Most people draw water from the well either early in the morning or in the evening time, when the sun has set. Why? Because it's cooler. It's cooler. But there's this woman who decides to come out at noon. And she comes alone and she's going to draw water from the well at noon all alone. Why is that? Why is that? Because she's likely feels ashamed, judged, avoided, rejection by her own people. Ever walked into a room and felt that like everyone was whispering about you as soon as you walk in? Ever stayed quiet in a group because you felt like your story didn't measure up? Ever tried to hide the parts of your life that you hope that nobody finds out? Well, that's her. And she's about to have a conversation that was never expected. She never expected to have this conversation. And in verse 7 and 9, Jesus breaks the social and cultural rules of the day by asking for a drink from her. So this Jew is having a conversation with a woman, a Samaritan woman to be exact. Why is that a problem? Well, it's a problem because Jewish men should never initiate a conversation with a Samaritan woman, especially not alone, especially not in public. But Jesus isn't concerned with reputation. He's concerned with redemption. And in verse 10 to 12, Jesus tells her, if you would ask me, he tells her, if you would ask me, I would give you living water. And now she's confused. She's absolutely confused. Like, what? Like, what are you saying? You don't even have a bucket that I can bring you water. And that's the tension right there, friends. We get so focused on the surface that we miss out on the spiritual. She's thinking about water, and Jesus is offering her something much, much deeper. Verse 13 and 14, he goes on to say, those who drink the water that I give won't thirst again, won't be thirsty again. That hits home because she's been living very, very thirsty, longing for connection, longing for security, longing for belonging. But nothing has satisfied her. Nothing has satisfied her. She keeps going back to the same well in search of these things that she so desperately desires and needs, both figuratively and literally, right? And I wonder if some of you can relate here this morning. You keep opening up the same apps hoping for a different kind of connection. You keep saying this time will be different and still wind up with the same regret. You keep trying to numb the pain with food, shopping, porn, overworking, and scrolling. But things don't change. In verse 15 to 18, the woman says, please give me this water that you're offering. Give me this water. And then Jesus goes on to ask her to go and get her husband. Okay? To which she replies, I don't have a husband. And this is where, if you read this and be like, Jesus, really you said that? Because he says, you're right. You don't have a husband. You have had 5 husbands. And you aren't even married to the one you're living with now. You certainly spoke the truth. Ooh, Jesus was throwing shade. I find that so incredible of what he says to her. She didn't see that coming. Jesus touches the part of her life that she'd rather keep hidden, that she'd rather no one know. And he touches that part not to shame her, but to show her that he truly sees her. He truly sees her. And still chooses to love her despite what he sees. Here's the thing, friends. Jesus cannot heal what you won't reveal. He can't. He can't heal what you won't surrender to him, what you won't bring to him. Jesus doesn't expose you to embarrass you. He does it to free you, to set you free. In verse 19, she calls him a prophet because he knows her story without her telling him. She's had 5 husbands, and the man that she's with now isn't her husband. And instead of diving deeper, what does she do? She shifts the conversation to religion. Where should we worship? Where should we worship? In other words, let's talk theology, not about my life and my husband's. But Jesus brings it. He brings it back to the heart. He says God isn't looking for perfect people performing rituals. He's looking for people who are real, who will worship with honesty and spirit. And then he says something very shocking. He says, I am the Messiah. He doesn't say that to kings or religious leaders, but he says it to a Samaritan woman with a complicated past. And something begins to shift. She drops her water jug, runs back to town, and she begins to tell everyone about Jesus. The woman who once hid her story now becomes the one who shares it all. She came for water, but Jesus came for her. She brought an empty jar, but he saw an empty heart. She tried to keep things on the surface, but he spoke to the core of her soul. And here's what's so powerful, friends. Jesus didn't just confront her sin, he cared for her story. He cared for her story. He didn't tell her to clean herself up. He didn't shame her into change. He simply invited her to face the truth. To face the truth. You've been chasing something that can't satisfy you. She had tried relationship after relationship. She had built pattern after pattern, and maybe she didn't even know why anymore. She just kept ending up thirsty. Sound familiar? Sometimes, friends, we don't realize how deep the cycle goes until we hit a moment of honesty. And Jesus knew you can't experience lasting freedom if you're not willing to name what's been driving you. Your past pain, your fear of being alone, your need to feel vulnerable, desirable, and accepted. She didn't just have a problem behavior, friends. She had a heart that was wounded and worn out. That's why Jesus offered her more than a new rule. He offered her a new source. Because until we address what's really going on underneath, we'll keep doing what we said we'd never do again. Until you address the issue at hand, below the surface, you're going to keep stumbling on what you've been stumbling on before. Because wholeness requires us to address our wounds and our wants. It requires us. Because if you don't, those wounds that you have will keep bleeding. They will keep bleeding into your decisions. You need to address them. You need to surrender them. And those unchecked desires will keep dragging you back into regret. How many of us have said over and over, man, I regret that. I regret making that decision. I regret doing that. I regret walking into that. I regret buying that. I regret saying that. I regret. And no sooner do we say it, the next day we're right back at it. In the same situation, the same circumstance, because we have not addressed it. But what if, like the woman at the well, Jesus is waiting for you? What if Jesus is waiting not to lecture you, not to scold you, not to shame you, not to say, don't do that again? What if Jesus is waiting for you to love you to love you into something new. I'll wrap this up this morning. Listen, we've all got something. Let's not pretend. Let's not try to be higher than someone else. We all have something, from the youngest person in this room to the oldest, and everyone in between. We all have something. A pattern that we cannot break, a mistake that we keep repeating, a choice that we swore that we'd never make again. For some of us, it's anger that keeps spilling out. For others, it's the quiet habit that slowly takes more than it gives. It could be bitterness, an addiction, right? Or that one relationship that always pulls us back into who we don't want to be. But let's call it for what it is. We all have something. And here's the thing, that we think that if I could just try harder, if I could just try harder the next time. But haven't you already done that? Again, you cannot heal what you choose not to face. You won't change what you won't name. And James tells us to humble ourselves before God, to resist the enemy, and he will flee from you. Come close to God, and God will come close to you. But the first step toward that kind of freedom is honesty. Honesty. You don't have to be perfect, friends. You don't have to be perfect, but you do have to be real. You do have to be honest. You do have to speak the truth. You have to be real about what's pulling you in, real about the pain that you're going through, real about the fact that you cannot fix it alone. Maybe if I give you a tangible illustration. Imagine if I asked someone to come up here, right? And their arms are full of random things. Right? There's a backpack, a gym bag, a bag of fast food, maybe from 7-Eleven, that hot dog. But their arms are full. They have their purse, they got the dog on the leash, right? A grocery bag, they're walking around and their arms are full of things. A phone in their hand. Have you ever tried that before? All these things, right? And one by one, they stack or stuff into their arms until it's clear that they are struggling. They can't carry one more thing. They can't add one more thing, because the next thing is all going to come down, it's all going to break, and they just can't. Too many things going on. And you see that person. You see everything that they have. They're wobbling, they're straining, trying to keep everything from dropping. And then they're asked to pick up something new. A gift that is wrapped with a label on it. And that label says freedom, or healing, or a new life. But here's the thing. They can't pick up that new gift that is wrapped with something that they so desperately need, because there's so many things that they have right now at this moment that they're trying to carry. And it's not because they're not strong, it's because they're already full. Friends, sometimes the reason we cannot move forward is because we haven't let go. We haven't let go. We're still holding on to shame. We're still holding on to hidden habits, toxic mindsets, people pleasing, fake perfection, or fear of being found out. And just like this person on stage carrying all of this stuff, we are walking around carrying more than we were meant to. More than we were meant to. We can try to white knuckle up and get through it. You can pretend that it's not heavy, that it's not weighing on you. But eventually, friends, your arms will give out. Your arms will give out. Your peace will give out. Your faith will give out. The takeaway is this. You can't grab hold of what God's giving you if your hands are full of what's holding you back. You can't. No matter how you want to call yourself, if you want to call yourself Superman or Superwoman, you can't. You can't grab at what God's wanting to give you. You can't. Letting go, friends, isn't a weakness, it's wisdom. And when you finally stop pretending that you are fine and admit the fact that you are tired of carrying all of it, that's when God meets you. Not with condemnation, not with criticism, not with shame, but with love and compassion. This is where healing and wholeness is possible, friends. And it begins with Jesus. It begins with saying to Jesus and to someone in your life that you trust, this is where I'm broken. This is where I am hurting. And this is where I need God at this moment. And so here's your homework for today, this week. Write down one habit, one choice, or one situation that keeps pulling you in, even though you know that it's not helping. It's not helping you at all. Write it down, name it, face it, share it with someone that you trust, and then ask yourself, what's one small shift that I can make this week to avoid it? What's one small thing that I can do to move to the other side? Do the Heisman pose, push it to the other side. Right? What's one small thing that I can do to avoid it? Maybe it's deleting that app. Maybe it's setting a boundary. Maybe it's starting therapy. Maybe it's finally forgiving yourself. Whatever it is, don't wait till it wrecks more of your life, friends. You don't have to do it alone. God's already leaning in. He's already leaning in. His grace, his grace does not shame you. Instead, it invites you in for freedom. You see, you're not stuck forever. But you do have to start somewhere. And that somewhere can start now when you leave here. By addressing it, writing it down. One thing that just keeps pulling you back in. His invitation is today, friends. And it's for you. You don't have to keep hiding. You don't have to keep repeating the same story over and over. Jesus isn't waiting for you to get it all together. That's not what he's waiting for. And if you think that Jesus is waiting for you to get everything right, you're so wrong. That's not what he's about. He's offering you a better way, a way that starts by being honest this morning. By opening up your hands, by walking away from what's been holding you back and towards the wholeness that only he can give. Have you ever sat down, laid down, and a question popped up. Why don't I see the hand of God moving? Why am I still stuck here? Why have I not seen growth in my relationship with Jesus? Why do I still keep getting pulled in to those things that I know are not of Christ? Because you haven't surrendered it. You haven't surrendered it. Think about, why do we want to keep tripping over the same thing over and over and over when we can take out the time to address it and be done with it? Be free from it. And that's what God is promising us today. That is what God is wanting to do in us today. But it's up to you. Up to you. I cannot do that for you. Your spouse cannot do that for you. Your parents cannot do that for you. You have to choose that for yourself. Amen?
South Hills Church, I just want to take a moment and say thank you for watching our service online. Whether you're watching it for the first time or you're watching it again because you enjoyed the service so much from the weekend, I'd like to take a moment and dive into our giving. Every week we give people the opportunity to give back and give to the local church so that God can continue to bless your lives and bless your finances. Here at South Hills, we believe that everything comes from God. We believe that He's the one that chose us and brought us into this world, gave us our gifts and talents and abilities. And I just want you to know that when we give, we are giving back what God has already given to us. If you've ever seen any of our envelopes at a South Hills campus, you'll see on there that it says, every week at South Hills, your generosity is giving people the opportunity to live a better story. And there's a scripture on there in Matthew chapter 6, verse 21 that says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So I want to encourage you today to click down below and set up your giving, whether it's for the first time or whether you're doing reoccurring giving. We have 4 ways to give here at South Hills. 1, you can do it in person at any of our campuses through an envelope. Or 2, you can actually text any amount that you would like to 84321. And the 3rd way is to download our Church Center app. I encourage you to do this one because the Church Center app gives you opportunity to stay connected with our church and your campuses. It's a great tool and resource for you to know what's going on. And the 4th way to give is to give online. You can go to southhills.org/give and you can set up your giving there. Whether you're a guest of our church or whether you are a member of our church, or whether you simply just like to watch our services, I encourage you to trust God with your finances so that He can bless and anoint your finances and you can be trusting God in this journey of living life to the fullest. I love you and thank you for watching our online service today.